and today I am joined by two amazing people. On my closer right, this is Misha.
Hello.
She will be helping me host today's episode, and along with me, a very, very special guest. This is the Associate Director of International Admissions and Recruitment at the University of California, Davis. Everyone, welcome Miss San.
Hello. Hi. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so the first question is, what is one common mistake that you see students make during the application process?
I think when we review applications, especially for the UC system, a lot of things are self-reported. So when you tell students that things are self-reported, sometimes it's, if students try to do it in a rush, they all try to do it in one setting, that's usually they're missing the important information. So I think that's something I would encourage students not to do, to rush it or to try to do it in one setting. They should start their application early and then work their way through.
On the flip side, what are some things students have done really well?
When you review an application, you can tell how much time and effort students put in there. So it makes us really happy when students follow the instruction. They give us all the information that we ask for, and they give us good example of it. You can tell when students give you really detailed example and focus in talking about themselves, because ultimately you're the one who's going to go through that university application process, and you're going to be the one who goes to university. So talking about self is very important. Making sure that you portray the whole picture of yourself there is something that's going to help admission officer like myself when we review the application to get to know who you are.
If possible, could you share any specific examples, through your experience of going through all these, applications? Is there any one that stood out to you?
I would say that when a student can, again, follow the instruction, meeting the deadline, listing all the things that they do, but not only listing, giving good example, because a lot of times that when we look at students, you will see a lot of things very similar. You might go to the same school, having similar list of activities and things like that, but what it means to you is different. So we like it when we can see students that through their critical thinking, processing, reflecting on themselves through the application, because imagine you to be an admission officer, what you want to see in the application and what would help us to understand, why are certain things so important to you. That was going to help us to see how you're going to be a good member of our community when you come to our school. So that's something that I would say, if we can see that whole picture on the application, that's really going to help us.
Yeah.
So, sorry, just to follow up on that, is there something in particular that you'd recommend students who are applying to schools like yours to avoid doing in their application process? Because as we know, applying to colleges like yours is a very, very stressful, very, very tedious process.
I would say start early. Whatever information that you have, from all through high school, that's going to be little pieces of your application. But when you try to do it and your last year, as a senior, you're stressed, especially for students who are doing IB or different curriculums that you have your exams. You try to collect all the information, and that year it's going to be challenging. If you can, from year 10 or so to start collecting information, whatever activities that you do, you have it, keep it on a spreadsheet or something that all together. When you need that information, you just pull out that document. You see all the amazing things that you have done throughout the last 3-4 years. So when we ask you questions like, well, what's one challenges that you have? Then you look through all the things, then you'll be able to find that. So I would say that students who are prepared, who actually think it through and have the information in front of them when they're filling out the application, that's going to best reflect who they are.
Okay, so now moving beyond just applications,
Yes.
for students who are planning to study in the US, how do you recommend they prepare for life over there?
I would say a couple of things, but one thing that I have heard often, having been an admission officer for the last 13, 14 years, many things that I've heard, one thing that really stuck with me was, I think, family expectation. In terms of the application process, of course, your family might have expectation, but the communication piece, where I would say that when you're away from home, you have so much freedom. How do you make good use of it? Right? How do you, while being open-minded, but make good decisions? I would say that's something that I would strongly encourage you to think about, because when you are in high school, when you're, at home, your parents are going to tell you different, things to do. Your teacher's going to tell you different things to do. While you are a young adult, making decision for yourself when you are living in the U.S., I would say, preparing that how do you be a young adult. And I think the thing is the balance of the school life. Finances is another thing. I would say a lot of students struggle to learn how to figure out their finance, like when to pay what, and doing a budget and all that. And sometimes I also think it might be on the parents, because they give them too much like financial freedom.
Right, for
It's
sure.
like, here's a
For
credit
sure.
card, use it. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, I don't do that. I would say always like how to manage that, life beyond school, because you're not only figuring out being at school on time. Now you're figuring out your schedule and everything.
Like being
So-
more like responsibly, like independently.
Exactly. So thinking a little bit about that, how to plan your day and all that, I would say preparing, that would be important, yes.
Yeah, no, those are really good points. And from your perspective, what do American universities prioritize the most when evaluating applicants? Is it more about academics, work experience, or personality?
I would say that, well, any universities, right? Your academic foundation is important because we want you to get in. We also want you to graduate. It's something that, for me, like getting student admitted or matriculated into my university is not the most important part. Really, it takes, the faculty, the staff, everyone at the university level to make sure that you're getting the support you need, following through that. So I would say that academic will be helpful if you have a good foundation, right? Because then you know how to excel, in that and make good contribution and all that good things when you learn in classroom. And then I would say your internship or jobs or all those, extracurricular activities, leadership, those are going to be helpful outside of the classroom. And these things are going to help you find internship, jobs, research opportunities, and all that. So I would say a good combination of the balance. I always tell students that do something that you're excited about. Do something that you're good at. If you're studying something, hopefully studying something that it will be something that you really enjoy learning, that you're really good at.
Related to like majors maybe.
Relating to majors, relating to activities that you choose to do.
Right.
Because imagine something that you're really good at, but you're not excited about.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to do it. Like say all three of us are in the same major, right? Let's just talk academic. You two are very excited about the major and very talented at it. I'm just excited. I'm not very good. Then you two are going to go way farther than I do, right?
Yeah.
So I would say that in terms of academics, in terms of extracurricular activities, in terms of everything, right? With the passion and the talent, that might be helpful to sustain that long-term interest and be successful and hopefully, graduate and all the experiences and all those things. So I would say having a balance on that.
Yeah.
So in our school, there are a lot of students that want to go to university in California, or university in the U.S. in general. A lot of them don't have that mean of going there, experiencing the U.S. for the first time. Some of them will get into a U.S. college, but then they've never experienced life in the U.S. So, and especially coming from UC Davis yourself, attending there and graduating there yourself, what are some things that surprised you when you first experienced life in America or the U.S. college life?
Yeah, no, definitely. I was an international student when I was in Davis. So I think I did not expect, I heard about the sports culture. I think two things, the sport culture and the popular culture. Like, or jokes, different jokes. Sometimes just the social life, right? That piece. And sports activities, and it goes under that because I was not a sports person growing up, and I was just like, oh, do I have to do that? Is it something I have to do? Then I realized like I can go. I don't have to participate in the sports. I can go watch it. That's fine too. So you find ways to participate, but I do think the social, the safety piece of, for example, if you're in a place like Singapore, you feel very safe walking around and, generally speaking. I think in Asia, I want to say that anyone, you walk around, most time, even at 11 p.m., you'll feel okay, right? But I want to say that anywhere else in the world, that's something that I feel like students don't think about, safety. Two other things. Oh, do we actually? Transportation. There are places that you might have grown up that transportation is very easy. Transportation is very convenient. Some places in the U.S. is not like that. Most places are not, right? Maybe some require driving or public transportation, and the bus don't come every 20 minutes. It comes
Yeah.
like every hour.
Wow.
Right? Yeah.
Wow.
So the pace of life,
Uh-huh.
that tells you the pace of life, because here everything is so fast paced,
Yeah,
right?
very.
I think another thing that I have many students had that feedback was the system of appointments. So I think here where you try to get an appointment, it would be like tomorrow or the day
Yeah,
after tomorrow.
yeah, definitely.
But if you try to get an appointment in the US, a lot of times like in 2 weeks, in 3 weeks, you know. So I think it's just the pace of doing things. The students have different expectation when they come to a school, you know, in the US, because you have to plan. Plan ahead instead of I would say, the Asian efficiency, where a lot of things that you get done in a much quicker turnaround time. So I think it's the expectation. I wouldn't say that, you know, obviously I want to say student from Singapore, like language is not an issue. English
Yeah.
language is not an issue.
Yeah.
But I think it's really the lifestyle, the pace, the expectation of like transportation, or like what is the social norm. One thing that you eventually, you know, obviously think about is like dating life too. I think for some students, you know, they don't know like what is the cultural norm of like, oh, if someone asks you
Yeah.
to go on a date,
Yeah.
like, can I say no? Like, how do I say no? Or if someone asks you for coffee, like, I had no clue. Like, I had, you know, I met someone and then they asked me to go to coffee. This is years ago. and then I was like, oh, and then my friend was like, oh, like they're interested, and I was like, what? Like, I was just hanging out with someone, just going to get coffee. Like, I didn't think of it as, but that's how I
Right.
get to know you
Right.
in the US. So it's one of those like where you're just like, oh, I didn't realize it until afterwards. So it was very interesting. So I would say, you know, even though the language barrier is not there, but I definitely think the cultural differences is there. And, you know, I think that's something that would be helpful for students to think about, or at least like make friends and then ask them like, what does that mean? You know? and I think it's also for you to be comfortable, to be like, hey, what does that mean? You know, because I think it's something that it was hard for me when I was a student to be like, oh, I didn't know what that means. Like, to ask, to acknowledge that you don't actually know, I think comes with age and the comfort for yourself and all that to kind of ask that questions too. So
Yeah. So, in terms of student life, maybe more academically,
Yes.
there's a lot of boarding students that attend ACS International, and they're very, very academically driven. They've grown up to, you know that that's the way they have to act, you know, throughout life. And is there any difference between maybe like international Asian countries, you know, so like Singapore and American culture? Is there any difference there?
yes, so I would say that it depends on the type of school that you go to. You know, obviously when we say in the US, when we say it's a smaller school, it might be a few thousand, right?
Yeah.
When you say a smaller school in Singapore, it could be a completely different
Hundreds,
story, right? So I think it's just expectation of the academic expectation, where like how big or how small the classes are. I would say that for some students, they're not used to the lecture style of classroom, because when you go to a classroom right now, it's like 25 people, 20 people max, right? But when you go to an American, you know, university classroom, sometimes your first like calculus class, it could be a couple hundreds of people. If you go to a big public school, right? So I think it's just that expectation of, you know, going to class early, sit in the front, things like that. I would say the academic level, definitely our students internationally, they don't have much issue. If anything, they actually have a much higher and better retention rate and graduation rate, because they're very driven, right? Tuition is expensive, so a lot of times they have a goal that I'm gonna, you know, go in, I'm gonna graduate, I'm gonna utilize my IB credit to get a head start and things like that. So that's something that I want to say that is not that. But another thing I could think about is the reading, like doing reading before going to classes is something that I want to say in high school. I think anywhere, not just internationally or in Singapore. I think even for students who are from locally in the US, within the US or in California, I think having to do that reading before going to classes, reading the syllabus, knowing what to expect, I think that is something that many students in high school did not have to do. So I would encourage the student, you know, if they want to go to universities, it's really helpful to prep for classes and have study group, getting into like a schedule and a habit. Then it goes back to, you know, being a young adult, making decision, making your own schedule, the whole thing. So I think I want to say it is definitely a different level of you know, education that they're looking at, but also I want to say that it takes a lot of self-initiative and things with that.
So I have a lot of family that goes to the UC schools, and one thing that they've told me that actually I still remember that stood out to me is that when you go to college, there's a lot of free time. You know, if you go to a lecture if you want to, you attend the classes you want to. In our school we have a fixed schedule. You do this, and after that you do that. What are some ways or things you should do for students who going to universities that follow this type of schedule to spend their time effectively?
I would say that's something students have to remember, that when they come to university in the US, they are full-time students. Sometimes students are like, well, now that you go to classes, every day, it's long hours, right? But at university, you have flexible schedule. Then you do other things. You might have a part-time job, you might do clubs, activities, sports leadership, whatever they are. I think one thing to remember is that every hour you spend in the classroom, you should spend 2 hours studying. Versus in high school, you do majority of it in school. And then you study a little bit outside because you barely have time, right? Because school takes over. But I think for a lot of students that they forget that being a student is actually a full-time job. So having the part-time job, in the US for international students can work for no more than 20 hours a week on campus. So some students, they max it at 20. But when you think about it, if being a student is a full-time job, that's 40 hours. Then you have to find 20 hours to do your part-time job, and then you have to find other times to do all your extracurricular activities. That's not much time. So I think I would say that for students who are starting to having the balance of their academics and activities or internship or part-time job, don't do 20 every week. Start with like 8 to 10 hours. You kind of see your balance. And knowing self is important too. If you're a morning person, things like that, how you schedule your classes. And I think the one thing that I appreciate you pointing out is that here, in high school, if you don't show up for something, your teacher is going to come after you. But when you're at university, I would say that if you don't show up for things, when you call into some office, you're usually in trouble. Right? Or you disagree with your professor of your grades. Right? That's something that, it's not, nobody is there to be like, hey, do this and do that. So you kind of have to take initiative yourself and make sure that you are on top of things. And it gets challenging. Also, I think something that people don't talk enough about is you're going to be doing all this by yourself. And you might be going with some friends in the same state or same school, same university, but you're going through this without your support system, without your family, without your friends that you grew up with. So I think it's also making time, to stay connected with family, with friends, with your loved ones. Something to balance that out might be helpful.
And lastly, what advice would you give to students on how to steadily adapt to the academic environment in the US?
I would say that in high school, obviously, start your research as early as possible. Trust your college counselor. If you are at a school that you have a college counselor, definitely trust them. Don't listen to people that might be like uncle and aunties that, their friends or friends' kids went through this process, because everyone is different. There's not really a set formula as to how to get into a certain school, a certain path, because everyone is different. So I would say that you kind of have to ask yourself if going to the US is something that you really are looking to, and definitely thinking about how to best use of that, freedom of time, being a young adult, making good decisions, all these things. But ultimately, I think you are the one who is going to go through this. So think about what you want and think about if a U.S. education is something that you want. Because some students, they might prefer, having the set major, not changing major, but some students might want the flexibility of changing major, double major, having all these things outside the classroom. So you kind of have to know what you sign up for. When you meet an admission office like myself, it is our job to tell you that my school is fantastic. My school is fantastic. but you have to have a little critical thinking. Think about what I'm telling you or what anyone's telling you, is this the best for you? It doesn't matter how amazing I tell you, something is, right? You kind of have to think about, why are they telling me this, and is this best for me? So I think having that critical thinking pieces is going to help you to make good decisions for yourself and remember what is important for you. And if you can own this process of college admission, going to US or not, that's not the most important thing. I think making the decision for yourself is important. But if you can go through this process, if you can own this process, when you go to any university in the world, you are going to be able to problem solve. You are going to be able to, get all your questions answered, figure everything out. So I would say that the more you own this college application process, the better you're going to be in the future.
So we have a lot of students in ACS International, around our age, they think that, I really, really want to go to somewhere in the US for my university life. Is there any place or where should students start researching about college US admissions?
Well, obviously, going to your college counseling, if you have that office, I would say you do have a great counseling team here, and then university reps like myself, just listen to anything, anywhere. It doesn't matter if you're interested in the country or the school or not, just go listen and think about if this is something that is important to you. Just add it to your list of things that, this sounds interesting. I'm hoping that my university would have it, right? And then you can also talk to teachers, ask the experience, right? If there are certain teachers that you really like, ask them how they pick their school, how they pick their major, if they know. Are they studying are they doing what they study? Because half of the time it's not. Right? So sometimes it's like that. I would say that you can learn it from social media, but don't trust everything because, in any social media, everything's great.
For sure.
Right? So take a look, but also you will get a lot of sense of the student life because on top of academic, you're going to have a life there. So you're going to have to picture yourself being there, having that social life or not. So social media will tell you a little bit more of what's outside of the classroom like. And then I would say, knowing yourself really is important, what you like, what you dislike, what you're looking for, but be open-minded. Don't just listen to this country or this school. Understand, everything before making an informed decision. I think I would say that, you might hear a lot of university reps saying we're looking for the best fit. In terms of the fit, there's a lot of things. The academic fit, if we have the major that you want to study. There's also, financial fit, okay? If there's something that your family is going to be okay with. And also I would say that advice to parents is that don't just think about I don't want my kid to worry about money. They shouldn't worry about that. It's not about worrying about the money, but also if they don't know how to manage the money, how do you expect them to be able to earn that money in the future? So I think the academic fit, the financial fit, the environment fit, everything kind of comes together, and you kind of have to knowing self that would help to make that decision.
Do you have any more questions?
How do you know which is your best fit for university? What are some tips?
I would say that in terms of the academic piece, right? You have all these resources about different majors and all that. Talking to students, for example, you have cousins that goes to UCs, right?
Yeah.
Ask them about what the experience is like, but don't just listen to one person, right? Listen to multiple people talk about the experience, and always ask them a question what do you wish you knew, didn't, about the school, about the decision, about this country, right? Ask yourself what is important. For some students, the food is important. For some students, the weather is important, right? So you kind of have to think it all through, and really I would say that having that conversation, if you're I really don't know where to start. So I would say that a lot of times that you will have some career days and things like that. Participate in those. Look at people, or you meet someone and they have the coolest job, right? Ask them, how did you get here? Tell them more, right? I think don't be afraid to ask people to share the experience because a lot of times these people are you will not believe it. Then they will tell you it would be the most unexpected way of finding their path. So I would say that I was very lucky. I had no idea. I didn't grow up and be I want to be an admission officer. Nobody says that, but it's something that I just kind of walk into as I, was graduating college. I was an orientation leader when I was on campus. I also used to work at the Alumni Association, so I met a lot of people. And obviously, Davis gave me a really good experience. I really enjoyed it. I've been talking about it. Getting paid for it is a bonus, but I never imagined to go into education. And here I am, and then later on I went into getting a master in higher ed and all that. But I get excited every day that I get to interact with students, I get to interact with counselors, with people who actually trying to figure out their way, because every answer that I give to every single student is going to help them to ease up a little bit of the anxiety of making through this process. So that makes me excited. So I felt it's the whole passion and talent thing, where luckily that's where it meant for me. So, and I wish that for everyone. I'm like, well, Davis is a great school. I mean, I want everyone to go, but at the same time, they kind of have to find a place where they can feel like their second home.
Yeah. So with that being said, thank you so much for your time today, Ms. San, and for sharing all this insight. I think it was definitely helpful. It's going to be very, very helpful for all our students here, and other students in other schools watching. It helps them prepare for university life and life abroad. If you guys haven't already, please follow Academic Ally Podcast on all socials at the Academic Ally, and stay tuned for the next episode coming soon. And once again, thank you so much, Miss San.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
The school is now closed. Please make your way off campus.